The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence of our kitchen, followed by my wife's sharp voice echoing against the marble walls. "If you don't like how I run things, maybe you should start paying the bills again, Daniel." Her words struck harder than the wine glass that splintered across the floor. She stood by the counter, her face flushed, a storm behind her eyes. The sharp scent of red wine clung to the air. I stared at the crimson pooling at her feet, thinking how fitting it looked, spilled like everything between us lately. I didn't say a word. Not yet. She crossed her arms, her tone softening into something coldly triumphant. "I provide for this family now. My income keeps this house standing. My rules keep it running. Maybe you should remember that." That sentence, the tone, the arrogance, dug into me like a blade. I'd been out of work for 6 months. After 15 years in finance, I was laid off when my company merged and downsized. I tried to stay strong, kept applying, kept interviews lined up, but rejection emails stacked up like unpaid bills. Through it all, Claire, my wife, stepped up. Or so it seemed. She'd started a marketing consultancy, and within months, she was making more than I ever had. First, I was proud. She'd been supportive, telling me we'd get through the rough patch together. But slowly things shifted. She started working late. Her phone became an extension of her hand. Passwords changed. Laughter, soft, private laughter, echoed from her office late at night. I told myself I was being paranoid. That insecurity was twisting my perception. But that night, as she stood there with her chin lifted, something inside me cracked. I bent down to pick up the shards of glass from the floor. "You're right," I said quietly. "You provide now." For a moment she looked startled, as if expecting me to fight back. But I didn't. I just cleaned up the mess while she stood watching, her breathing heavy with victory. That was the first night I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was curious. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog. Claire's behavior grew stranger. She began dressing sharper, leaving earlier, coming home later. She stopped inviting me to her office gatherings, claiming they were networking events and I'd be bored. When I'd ask who she was texting, she'd roll her eyes. "Clients, Daniel. You wouldn't understand the pace of my work." The subtle contempt in her voice stung more than her words. She no longer looked at me like a partner. I'd become something between a burden and background noise. One Friday night I made dinner, her favorite pasta with basil and garlic, and waited for her. The clock hit 10 p.m. Then midnight. She didn't come home. The next morning I found her on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, her makeup smudged, smelling faintly of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "Rough night?" asked, trying to sound casual. She winced at the light and muttered, "Work event. Don't start." But I noticed something she didn't, the faint bruise near her collarbone, barely hidden beneath her blouse. My throat tightened, but I said nothing. I just watched as she sipped her coffee, her expression distant, like she was somewhere else entirely. Over the following days, I began to observe more carefully. Her laughter over the phone sounded too intimate. Her texts made her smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. She began locking her laptop even when going to the bathroom. One afternoon I called her office landline just to ask what time she'd be home. A woman picked up. "Hi, this is Mindset Marketing," she said cheerfully. "Claire's not in today. She's working remotely." Remotely. I looked at the time. It was 4:30 p.m. She'd left the house that morning in heels and her navy blazer, kissing me on the cheek as she rushed out the door. That was the first time I knew, truly knew, that something wasn't right. But instead of confronting her, I waited. A few nights later, she came home late again, humming under her breath as she poured herself a glass of wine. Her lipstick was faintly smudged, her blouse buttoned one too low. I watched her from the living room, the glow of the TV flickering between us. "Long day." She glanced up, startled, then smiled, a bit too quickly. "Yeah. Meetings ran over. With clients." "Of course," she said, her voice brittle. "Don't start your little jealous games again, Daniel. You know how hard I work." The way she said jealous made my jaw tighten. I know, I said quietly. You provide for this family now. That line. It was almost satisfying to throw it back at her. But she just smirked and walked away. I stared at her wine glass, at the faint lipstick mark near the rim, and decided I'd had enough of assumptions. The next morning while she showered, I took her phone. She'd changed her password again, but I noticed the smudges on the screen. 4 faint fingerprints forming a familiar pattern. Took me 3 tries, but I got in. My hands trembled as the screen unlocked. Messages flooded the screen. Hundreds between her and someone saved only as M. The first one I opened was from last night. M. You looked incredible tonight. Couldn't stop thinking about you all day. Claire. Stop it, I'm blushing. You're terrible. M. When can I see you again? Claire. Maybe tomorrow. Daniel's home lately, so it's tricky. But I'll find a way. A sick, cold wave rushed through me. My stomach turned. I scrolled further. Photos, jokes, private confessions. Their exchanges stretched back months. And then I saw the one that broke me completely. M. Does he still think you're just working late? Claire. He's too busy playing house husband. I handle everything now. My money, my rules. That was it. The very words she'd thrown at me. I heard the water shut off upstairs and quickly locked her phone, placing it exactly where it had been. That night, when she came down wearing that same practiced smile, I couldn't look at her without feeling like I was staring at a stranger. She leaned down to kiss me goodnight. I turned away. Something wrong? She asked, her voice faintly amused. Nothing, I said. I was just thinking about how much you do for this family. She didn't notice the edge in my tone. She just smiled, proud, unaware that her empire was already crumbling in my mind. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay there in the dark, watching her breathe beside me. Every rise and fall of her chest felt like a betrayal. I thought of all the nights she'd claimed to be exhausted from work, all the mornings she'd left smelling faintly of someone else. I thought of what providing had turned her into. By morning I'd made up my mind. If she wanted to play the role of the sole provider, I would let her. Completely. I stopped paying for the groceries, the utilities, even the mortgage I'd been covering with my savings. I stopped doing her laundry, cooking her meals, fixing things around the house. When she asked about the bills, I simply said, "You provide, remember? Your rules." First she laughed. Then she frowned. And finally she started to panic. I watched the cracks form, slowly, beautifully, until her confidence began to falter. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I wanted her to feel it, the weight of her own words, the cost of her lies. And when she did, I'd be ready. It didn't take long for the first tremors to show. Within 2 weeks, Claire's confidence began to waver. The fridge was half empty, the internet bill overdue, and her once immaculate credit card payments started to bounce. She tried to mask it with bravado, pretending everything was fine, but even her tone had changed. "Daniel, did you forget to pay the water bill?" she asked one morning, rummaging through drawers for her checkbook. I looked up from my laptop calmly. "No, I didn't forget. You said you provide for this family. I assumed that meant all the bills." Her jaw tightened. "Don't be petty. You know I meant." "You meant exactly what you said," I interrupted softly. "Your income keeps this house standing. Your rules keep it running. I wouldn't want to break those." For the first time her confidence faltered. The silence between us stretched, brittle and sharp. Then she forced a smile. "Fine. I'll handle it." She did. For a while. But as her expenses mounted, I noticed her late-night texts became fewer. The smile that used to light her face when M messaged her had dimmed. Then one Friday evening I heard her in her office. Her voice, once flirtatious and honeyed, was tight and panicked. "No, listen, I can't keep doing this," she whispered harshly. "You promised me." "No, I'm serious, Marcus. I can't afford." "Marcus." The M. I froze outside the door. "I told you Daniel wouldn't find out," she said, her voice cracking. "But things are falling apart. You said you'd help if I covered for us until your divorce was final. You can't just leave me hanging like this. A long pause followed. Then I heard a muffled sob. Don't you dare hang up on me, Marcus. Don't. The click of the call ending sliced through her words. I stepped away silently, my pulse steady, my expression calm. The perfect storm was finally forming. Over the next few days, Claire's behavior shifted again. Frantic now, not arrogant. She tried to mend small things between us. She made me breakfast, asked about my job search, even placed a hand on my shoulder while we sat on the couch. I've been thinking, she said one night, her voice hesitant. Maybe we should take a trip. Just you and me. Reconnect. I smiled faintly. Reconnect. Sounds expensive. Her eyes flickered with something like guilt. Money isn't everything. I almost laughed at that. The irony was too rich. That weekend I decided it was time to end the show. I spent the next 2 days gathering everything. Her messages, screenshots, phone logs, even photos of her entering a hotel with Marcus. My friend Ryan, a private investigator, had done me a quiet favor after I'd shown him the texts. The evidence was meticulous. Every lie she'd ever told was there, frozen in digital ink. Monday morning, I invited her to dinner. I cooked her favorite meal, just like the one she missed that night months ago. Candlelight flickered across the table, wine glasses gleaming. She walked in, visibly relieved to see me smiling. This is nice, she said softly. I missed this. Me too, I replied, pouring her wine. Sit down. Let's talk. She smiled, tension leaving her shoulders as she Saturday. So, what did you want to talk about? I slid a small folder across the table. Your rules. Her smile faltered. What do you mean? I leaned back, watching her closely. I thought we could go over how you've been providing for this family. Confusion clouded her face. She opened the folder. The first page was a printed screenshot of her messages with Marcus. Her eyes widened. The second page, hotel photos. The third, financial statements showing thousands transferred to a joint account with his name on it. Her face drained of color. Daniel. Her voice was barely a whisper. Where did you get this? I didn't have to look hard, I said evenly. You were sloppy. But what really surprises me is how proud you were while you were betraying me. My money, my rules. Remember. Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't what you think. It's exactly what I think, I cut in quietly. You were funding your affair with my savings. You drained our joint account to pay for his apartment. And now that he's left you, you suddenly remember me. Her hand trembled as she reached for mine. Daniel, please. I made a mistake. I was scared you'd lost your job and I felt powerful. Asked, my voice razor sharp. In control for once. She broke down then, her voice cracking. I didn't mean to hurt you. I wanted to feel wanted again. Thought he cared. And when you stopped working, I panicked. I didn't know how to handle it. I stared at her for a long time. You could have told me that, I said quietly. Instead, you turned me into the enemy. Her tears fell silently, her face pale under the warm glow of the candles. I stood up and slid a set of papers across the table. Divorce documents. You've been providing, Claire. You can keep doing it. But you'll be doing it alone. Her eyes widened. Daniel, no, please. We can fix this. I'll end it. I already did, I interrupted. I called Marcus last night. Turns out his wife knows everything now too. She gasped, her lips parting in shock. You didn't. I did. And here's the best part. His wife owns the majority share of his company. You might want to update your resume. She stared at me, realization dawning like a slow, cruel sunrise. The walls around her, the lies, the arrogance, the fake control were collapsing. Daniel, please, she whispered. I can't lose everything. You already did, I said softly. When you decided that providing was more important than partnership. I walked away, her sobs following me down the hall. It's been 6 months since that night. The house is quiet now. Too quiet sometimes. I sold it and moved into a small apartment overlooking the river. I found a new job, one that doesn't consume me the way my old one did. Claire tried to reach out a few times, calls, emails, even showing up at my door once. She looked different then. Exhausted, older, as if the weight of her choices had finally caught up. I listened once. She said she'd lost everything. Marcus, her clients, her savings. She wanted forgiveness, not reconciliation, just peace. I told her I'd think about it. Sometimes when I walk by the river at night, I wonder if I could have saved us if I'd spoken sooner. Maybe if I'd been stronger, or more patient, or less wounded by pride. But then I remember her words, my rules. And I realize some lessons only make sense when everything falls apart. In the end, she taught me that providing for someone doesn't mean controlling them. It means standing beside them, not above them. I provided love, trust, stability, and she traded it for power. She provided money, arrogance, and betrayal. And when I stopped providing mine, hers couldn't stand on its own.